Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being a little patient with us. Had some technical difficulties, but we worked through those this morning. I am Stephen Thomas with Refine Realty, always with my man,
Michael Chapman, the astute home advisor.
Welcome today to today's Free Game Friday. Today, we're going to kind of dive a little bit into credit and how it affects not only the home buying process, but even everyday things like insurance and stuff like that. So we'll talk about just the overall concept of credit, how each industry uses their version of the credit, and go in how we can actually help you change it. Good morning, Ms. Tucker. How you doing?
Hey, good morning, Felicia Chapman. How you doing?
So first thing first, credit. What is it? So there are thousands of different
Brian, what's going on?
Thousands of versions of credit that's going on out there. There's different mixes, there's different bureaus, there's different FICO scores, all that. You hear different types of what's your true actual credit score. So credit is mixed up of three different bureaus. You have Experian, you have TransUnion, and you have Equifax, okay? These are regional credit bureaus. So TransUnion really takes care of most of your South type of industry. So if the auto person that you're going through, headquarters is usually in the South, they're probably the main one they're going through is TransUnion. So that's why you'll see sometimes there is only an account may only show up on one of your bureaus, TransUnion being it, but they don't show up on Experian or Equifax. That's because of the relationship of or geographical area of the actual company, okay? Then you have Equifax, which on your West Coast, and Experian, which is your East Coast. So nowadays, most of them are reporting to all three, but some of your smaller companies only report to a certain region, right? So how do they affect your score? So these bureaus are secondary companies. So these are not official bureaus or anything like that. These are secondary companies that sell their reports to other lenders to help make decisions when it comes to giving out credit and things of that nature. So there's no a real official position for all three of them, right? It's just like anything else where it's just a tool that lenders use to basically kind of figure out what or how well you are positioned to get this loan that they're about to get.
Pretty much it's risk management.
There you go. So in a lender's eyes, they got to, based off of a file that goes before the underwriter or anyone like that, they're looking at data based off of behaviors.
Right.
So they're looking at how much income that you have, how long have you stayed at a certain residence, or and then when the credit comes into play, it's how well you take care of bills. So I've given you a certain amount of money,
right,
and you have agreed to pay me on a certain date for a certain amount for a certain amount of time. How well have you managed that in the past, right? So
can I add something to that? And when they look at that, I know a lot of us, we get a grace period, right? And when you are paying your bills on time, that's a factor to how much credit or risk they're willing to take with us. So if we practice paying as agreed based on the day the contract states that we pay on, you'll probably have a better percentage of somebody else giving you money based on your credit because you paid as agreed. So don't try and always finagle and use that 5-day, 10-day, 15-day grace period that these lenders give you when you're dealing with credit, because it may turn around and bite you in the tuchus.
Right. So I always talk to my clients about the position of the lender. Okay, so I don't think I did it last time when we introduced ourselves, but a little bit about my background. I've been in the financial service and the banking industry for most of my career before actually going all the way into real estate. So I have been with several banks, Chase, Wachovia and BBVA Compass, and was a VP with them for quite some time before I went full-fledged real estate. So I've been dealing with mortgages and getting people into loans. I'm getting the homes through loans before I actually start going on the other side, which is being a real estate agent. So I have a little bit of background when it comes to what we look for as a lender when it comes to getting you into a home, okay? So I always kind of give an analogy. If Michael asked me for 20 bucks, I probably don't have a problem with it because me and Michael have a relationship. I know him, I see him 2 or 3 times a week. I know where he lives, he knows my wife, I know his wife, I know him. However, if Michael's cousin comes and asks me for 20 bucks, I don't know Michael, my cousin. I don't know if he's gonna get my 20 bucks back. So I'm gonna go off what Michael tells me about his validity or if he's trustworthy enough to get that information. Right?
Depending on what cousin it is.
Exactly.
On the answer you get.
Exactly. So that's the position of the lender. They don't know who you are. So we, as your real estate agent and working with your loan officer, we're trying to tell a story to get the lender comfortable with giving you information, right? Or giving you that money to buy that house or buy that car, things like that. Right. So your credit report is a way to get familiar with how you are as a person that is responsible for a certain amount of money. So this bank is going to actually give you, if you're buying a $300,000 home, they are actually giving the person that you're purchasing the house from or the company that your house from, they're giving them $300,000 to get you that home. And then at that point in time, you start paying the bank back after you actually get into the home. So they are looking at you up front to say, hey, can we trust this person with $300,000? Now, with that being said, if I'm gonna give you $300,000 and I look at your credit report and you can't handle $3,000, why would I give you $300,000 to purchase a home and I be ensured that I'm going to get my money back? So that's kind of the mindset of most lenders when it comes to the credit, right? So what is credit? Credit is made up of about 5 things. It is the first one is how many times you're getting your credit check. So that makes up probably the smallest amount of points that you can either gain back or lose, okay? So people are always asking me, well, is it gonna hurt for people to run your credit? Technically, yes. The more you run your credit, the lower your score goes now, but that only affects about 15 to 20 points in your credit score. And it only affects you if you're doing it incorrectly. When I say you're doing it incorrectly, if you're going to go out and applying for a credit card, then you go apply for a car or a phone and then a house. So you're actually going through 3 different or 4 different industries all at the same time. Those are going to count against you because those are 3 or 4 different entities that are pulling your credit. Now, if you are in a position where you're shopping for a home or shopping for a car, and you may go to 2 or 3 different lenders to help try to get the best loan or best interest rate for your car, and you pull your credit by several different lenders in the same industry, that doesn't affect you as bad as spreading it out through other industries. So as long as you're doing it in a certain amount of time, usually the rule of thumb within 15 to 30 days, and it's all in the same industry, usually that only counts against you about as a 1 pool, because they know that you're out trying to be a good steward of your money and get the best interest rate possible, right? Second component is how much new credit that you have. So it's actually I don't say a problem, but the more new credit you have, it can affect your score. So that affects about 55 points in your credit score. So when I say how new your credit score, it really is the age. So the longer you've had a credit line, the better. So if you had a credit card since you were 18, now you're 32, it has, what, 14 years of credit history that it can look back at and says, hey, okay, I can tell that this person is taking care of this particular credit line for over 14 years.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
So this just came up for me earlier this week. We have a client that's looking at buying a home,
okay,
and they were considering switching out their cars, which is kind of like one of the big things that we have. And I tell them, if the car is paid off, you know, what does that do to the age of their credit from an old car to a new car?
Okay, so with that question, anytime you add a new loan to your credit mix, and we'll get to credit mix in a few minutes, they average out the length of time that you had your credit. So same scenario with this particular person. Say they had a credit card for 10 years, and that's the only thing that was on their credit. So their length of time of having credit is a 10-year span. That looks good.
Right.
That's 10 years worth of longevity that they can see that, hey, this person has had credit for 10 years. Now they go out and get that new car, right?
Right.
Now you just added a new piece to your credit length of time, right? And they average that out. So you take basically a brand new loan and you average out with that 10. Now you went from 10 to 5.
Right.
So that length, or that average length of time is truncated because you've added that new loan. So we always talk to our clients about, especially going through the lending process, when you start that loan or you're within that 3 to 6 months before you actually really want to start looking for a house, we recommend do not take out any new loans or any new credit cards, or allow anybody to pull your credit, because most mortgage companies really look at the last 2 years.
Yeah. You know what? I want to kind of teach them this thing too, because I know people always worry about the credit score, but a lot of times we don't even know what the profile is made up of. Like, what are the factors of your credit score, like your profile? What percentages dictate what the score is made of? You know, like credit history, your credit mix, the installments and things of that nature. So I put on there the other day, I don't know if you guys were paying attention, but the 35, 30, 15, 10, 10. And I was wondering if anybody would chime in and tell me what they knew about those numbers. And what I found is people didn't know what those numbers meant. And that's the beautiful thing about today, because we're talking about credit. Those 5 numbers are very, very important, right? Because 35% of your credit score is based on your payment history.
Correct.
You know, and if you don't pay your bills on time, that's affecting your credit score 35%. Like, that's a big number.
So to put it into perspective, what that means by 35% of your credit score, you miss one payment, or you're behind a 30-day, your payment, or your credit score can drop nearly 45 to 65 points just off one missed payment. That's how crucial paying your bills on time is when it comes to the credit score.
Right, right. And then the next one is the 30%. So we're talking about the 30% is the amount owed. And I know a lot of you guys always hear how much you owe on the credit card, right? Or how much you owe in student loans, or how much you owe for a certain bill. And if you don't have those numbers kind of set in place, controlling that number controls your overall credit score. So those 2 numbers, that's 65% of your credit score profile right there. Is just your payment history and the amount, that's 65%.
Right.
So knowing that this is what makes up the credit profile is huge, because then it kind of educates you as to where you are and where you could be based on these small adjustments or disciplines that we can kind of work together to get you onto the next level of life, whether it's home ownership or just a better credit profile for a job application or a car, or what have you, whatever is the next phase in your life. You can control that based on knowing these numbers.
Now, also inside of amount owed are 2 other things that are crucial to helping you get a home, which is the amount owed affects what is called DTI, which is your debt to income ratio. We'll get into that in another segment. But as homework, look up what DTI is. DTI basically determines how much home you can actually purchase.
Right.
So it doesn't matter how much money you make. If your DTI is in a certain percentage, then that's all you can actually go out and go through. So we'll go get that into another episode. The other thing is actually credit card or credit utilization. So a part of old is you have two types of credit. You have installment and you have revolving credit, right? So installment is something like a car note, house payment, things that have a finite end. So after you pay this for 5 years or 7 years or 30 years, it ends. Revolving credit is something that as you pay on it, it basically gets back to you. That's a credit card. You have $1,000 line of credit. You charge up to $5. You make a $250 payment. Now you get $250 worth of credit back. That's revolving credit, right? So go ahead.
Good way to remember that is car loan, credit card.
Yeah. Car
loan is your installment. Your credit card is your revolver.
Right. So a part of that number on the credit owed is your credit revolving utilization. So that is, again, a huge part of that that credit mix, and it affects about 135 points of your credit score.
Right.
So anything under 30% of your credit card utilization. So credit cards is the easiest way to use the example. So again, going back to that $1,000 credit card. Okay, you have $1,000 of credit that is issued to you. Okay, 30% of that is only $300.
Right.
Okay, so you only want to carry $300 or less on that credit card to maximize the points that you are given for having that card. Okay, anything over 30% that you carry on those credit cards begin to affect negatively towards your score.
Welcome to math class.
So, and then as in going into stages, it starts pulling more and more away from you. So if anything under 30%, you're getting positive points towards your credit for having that particular credit line. But as you get over 30%, then those points will start being taken away negatively and then actually start doubling. So at 50%, you actually start getting double, or not, I won't say double, but the increase in size of the negative impact towards your score.
Yes,
then when you get over 80%, now they're basically penalizing you almost double the points.
Yes.
So that's why you can see somebody, you may have a 700 credit score, and then you go out and max out that credit card, don't pay it off, and all of a sudden you drop down to a 620. Reason why is because your credit utilization has now ran over 80%.
You know what I just thought about is the 80-20 rule, right? It kind of goes along with credit as well, because they say the difference between what's really important is the 20% that you do, because the other 80% is stuff that you probably can ignore,
right,
or just remove from. And if you look at it from a perspective of credit, is if you focus on just the 20% that you have as opposed to the whole credit limit that's available to you, and you work on just that 20%, your score is going to be just so much better than you using the whole 100%. So that's just cushion. Anything over the 20% is gravy on top. But if you focus on keeping it at 20 and working at 20%, then you kind of in the process of getting to exactly what you want. If you work on that 20, you're going to almost always get what you want. And that's with credit, life, love, money, all that.
Now we get into financial planning. That's going to be another episode. But again, going back to how important credit utilization is towards the score, that's the easiest way, like I said in the last episode, is a quick fix on anybody's credit. To look at how can I get them? The actual credit mix. And what we mean by credit mix goes back to what we were talking about earlier, was how many revolving lines of credit that I need, how many installment lines of credit that I need. Now, most of your lenders require you to have at least one installment loan and 2 revolving lines of credit. Some actually require 3. Okay, and what that means is that you need to have at least one installment loan and 2 credit cards or credit revolving lines of credit that are in good standing and that are active. And when I say active, it means these are not paid off. You can't go back and say, well, oh, I had a car note, but I paid it off already. It needs to be an active line of credit that they can look at. And again, it goes back to seeing, hey, how have they handled the money over the last 2 or 3 years?
Right. And I kind of ran across a good idea, a nugget that somebody told me a little while ago, and I've been trying to tell my clients to use this philosophy. So even if you go into the bank and get yourself a secured loan, right, or get a loan from the bank, take that lump sum of money that they give you, run down to the same bank, open up a checking account that gives you interest, an interest-bearing account, and put it in there and set up an automatic payment. It does 2 things. It automatically pays that bill. That account gives you interest, which almost offsets the interest that's charged to you for taking that loan. So you're building your credit score based on using their money and getting interest. So you're not even paying for anything, and they gave you money, you build your credit score.
Right.
That's just another astute way to kind of, not necessarily to work the system, just make sure you do something that works for you and your credit profile.
Yeah, and getting a little bit into credit repair and things like that. Some of the things that you need to do when you're repairing your credit, and that's why I think a lot of people go wrong with some of these credit repair agencies and things like that. They think it's all about, just getting negative items off my credit. That is just step number 1. Okay, getting negative items off your credit is basically, getting you to the starting line.
Yeah.
Okay. Once we finally get negative credit off, we also need to put good credit back on, just like you said. And there's several ways you can do that. Just as an example that Michael just gave us, or even doing a secure credit card. We actually here have, when we're working with our clients with credit repair, there's a couple of lenders that we work with that will issue credit lines up to $5,000 and even installment loans up to $5,000 as well, for people with credit scores as low as 500. So those are things that we do when we're working with our clients to try to get them to that next level. So when we say that if you work with us and we get you into our credit repair program, and I know Michael has a really good program that he works with for with his Astute Institute.
Yeah, it's Nove money is what we use. And just not to cut you off, but the cool thing about that is we do exactly what Steven was mentioning, where we not only do we delete things off of the credit repair, like you said, that's only half of the battle. We have a whole suite of products that allow you to build your credit